It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. My name is Lewis, and I'm the host of the show. Welcome back if you are a returning listener, and kia ora, and welcome if you are new here. Do be aware, please, that if you enjoy this, there are 137 episodes in the vault. You can find those at verbalhighs.com alongside some of the other projects I am involved with. My guest today for number 138 is DJ V, or Vishal Vasan. I was going to say DJ V, aka Vishal Vasan, but that's the wrong way around, isn't it? V, I've known V since the mid-90s, safely say, and we both hail from Wellington, and in terms of the Wellington music scene that bubbled on up around that era, kind of late 90s to 2000s, that is well documented now. Vishal was kind of in the thick of that as a self-confessed, according to the Herald, man about town, linker-upper of people, put together of projects, wanderer of worlder. I'm a little flat right now, as I speak. I feel a bit like the hair in a before section of a conditioner commercial, so it's not a good vibe to run with. This was a great chat. Had this a few days ago, but right now I'm going to keep this intro brief just so I can get this on out to you. So, fairly short of anecdotes in the intro, but who listens to the blimmin' intros anyway? I tend to skip through them these days. My intros used to be 10 minutes long. Imagine that. What self-indulgent nonsense. Like the show, Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Twitter. As I said, there's a website, verbalhighs.com. Thank you for V for coming in and chatting. One of the only people that's asked to be on the show. It's very helpful. If you'd like to be on the show, ask. It's very hard for me as a slight hermit these days to line people up. Maybe I need V as a booking agent. Goodness gracious. Enjoy this chat, folks.
Verbal high straight down from up above.
It's good you're not scared of headphones. Some people are. They make it more intimate, bro.
Yeah, there you go. Check.
So you got your question here. How is middle age treating you?
Oh, we started.
Yeah.
Middle age.
So I'm not sleeping very well. I've always slept very well, but they say you sleep less when you get older.
Definitely wake up earlier. I'm not those sort of long Guzney sleep-ins. We kind of wake up and it's halfway through the day. But I guess.
But you're not middle age yet, right? You're what are you?
I guess I don't know. What is middle age? I just had a 45 RPM birthday party, so I think that's pretty middle age.
I thought you were like a couple of years younger than me because I'm about to hit 46.
Well, you all kind of catch up. I remember like little Carver used to be a lot younger than us, but now he's caught up as well. So
no, I think he's still the same distance away.
But it gets smaller, doesn't it? As you get older, that sort of gap between the elders and the youth.
I remember the first time I met him in Wellington because I met him in Palmy at an orientation gig I did out there at Massey. The first time I met him in Wellington before he moved there was they'd all caught the train down, up whichever way to DJ Zinc at La Luna. How mad is it that we had gigs like that at that tiny little bar?
It was back to back then, wasn't it? Just like every week there was always...
Sasha, the Super Club DJ, played it like basically a dive bar on Guzney Street. And I asked that because also I think there was a bunch of us, it's probably the same everywhere if you're into getting into music and culture and stuff, that were like, I think especially since the age shifted to 20... No, it shifted to 18 just after that, but we were still coming up when the venue age was 20, and I think there was a bunch of us that were just ridiculously young to be going to everything. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were well underage, and I remember Brian Dorman, anyone from Wellington knows Brian Dorman, he always used to give me shit because he was like, bro, I had so many pretend 21st birthdays. I think I started when I was maybe 16, 17, 10 was my 21st because the drinking age was higher than 20, 21. Then when my actual 21st rolled around, I was old. You know,
I remember getting ESC. I asked Glenn, "Hello, Glenn, can I please have ESC for my 20th?" And because he's a lovely guy, he also gave me I can't remember, like a whole tab or whatever, and it was my 19th, which is quite a serious, licensing stuff, 2020. But hey, look, people have got to have somewhere to go. Tim Ward once told me that the cops basically knew that he was an underage-ish bar, but they just knew that everyone was somewhere that wasn't a shithole and wasn't run by a muppet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
It's all about being on the side of the licensing guys, right, and the council guys that come around.
It was Wellington. We all knew everyone, I guess, back then. And what was that, $2 pint night at Trekkers, and then it moved to
Hole in the
Wall. Antipodes. Remember all the $2 pints?
And when I had Tim on the show, I was like, what was that beer? Was that even beer? It was like carbonated Marmite. It was like the Horse Hoof Brewery friggin'... What year did you finish 7th form or year 13 or whatever it's called now?
Oh, this is kind of where the sort of music side of it all begins. I was went to college at Wellington Boys.
Yeah.
And I was actually in the Accelerate Geek class, which meant that we did the year above us. I was a bit of a mathlete. I was quite good at the old maths. It sounded very stereotypical Indian. Mum was a maths teacher, and she's still teaching now at correspondence school down in Wally, and my auntie was a teacher, and I know, it was like maths, and so they set up this kind of accelerate program, they called it. I hate even talking about it, sounds weird, but you kind of did the year above you, and I think it was for them to get sort of high grades for the bursary and make the school look good and all this sort of thing. So the time, and I was already quite young. My birthday's 1st of May, so when I was at
oh my god,
college,
this is so similar. Keep going. I'll fill you in a sec.
Yeah. Well, I think we've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
So I was kind of doing the year above, and then it got to like sort of 6th form, and I did sort of bursary then, and I was already like 16. But I remember talking to Victoria University and going, "Hey, cool. Look, I just really want to get out of here." By that time, I was hanging out with everyone the year older than me, which was kind of, Brett, and we had such a cool group. There's me, myself, and Di in my year, but Nick Lloyd was there, all music based. Toby Lang,
I've thought about that. That was a real little moment in time at Wellington College.
Tim Jarrow, the Blue Samanthas. Wow, I haven't even thought of that name for a while.
Yeah.
But then they were all kind of moving on in that, and I just decided that this is kind of what I want to kind of move out and get out of Cole now. I was kind of sick of the all-boys college. We were sort of bunking off and hanging out with the crew at Wellington High School, as our friends over there. And so I managed to get into university, and I was 16 at
I remember
the time.
that being a thing that was mentioned around at the time that you'd got to uni at 16.
Yeah, and now it seems incredibly young. And at the time, it just felt natural. I moved out of home when I was there, moved into a flat in Johnson Street, with a whole lot of people that the Kim Worthingtons and that crew.
And how did all that work out? How many years did you last at uni?
Well, this is the thing. I wanted to do film and theatre.
Yeah.
And they sort of said exactly, and they said that we weren't mature enough to do it in your first year, so you had to do X amount of credits just to get into the sort of first year of film and theatre, which only started in year 2. And at that time, Radioactive was up on the hill, which is probably one of the most legendary radio stations we've had right up in Victoria on the campus.
That view, I could never quite do a show anywhere else after that view.
It was just, we all know us Wellingtonians who were lucky enough to DJ up there and sort of cut our teeth. Cut our teeth, is that what you say? Yeah, up there. And of course I met jazz through that. And then of course I met Moo through that. We were buying records down at Flipside and Troubadour.
Yeah.
And I guess after that I was like, this university life isn't really for me. So I think I'd lasted about a year, or maybe I did my first year.
This is again 95 or something like that.
Yeah, it was good time, flatting, working, holding down a probably cafe job during the day, and then of course the Matterhorn opens, and then the rest.
We'll get there. So paraphrased, if I may indulge, because this is a conversation, not an interview.
Yeah.
Not quite 16, but when I was in I think standard 1 or around there, they put me ahead. And then weirdly, like you said, my birthday's November, so it always felt like I was kind of a year and a half ahead. And so I got there at 17. I remember sitting my last exam, and I majored in theatre and film. I remember sitting my last exam before I turned 20, humble brag, but you know what? If I had kids, I've thought about this, not that I have any shade against my mum for doing it, I wouldn't get my kid put ahead, because I was so much younger than all that stuff when you're getting up puberty, girls, all of that. Being a year and a half younger is not ideal.
Yeah, well, I think myself, I was very lucky because of the people the year above me.
Yeah.
It was that real musical year, and it was very arty. You know, I was doing drama at college. That year, there were just so many creative people. You know, and we weren't we were Wellington Cole boys, which was very first 15 and rugby, but we never tried to be different. We just kind of were different, but it was kind of, we were accepting it because of a bunch of kind of freaks.
Barney as well, eh? He was
Barney
a Cole boy as well.
Younger than us, Di Henwood, you know, shout out to my boy Sam Hughes.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great time, you know, lots of music, lots of theatre, lots of running around and silly buggers around the town belt, you know.
Yeah.
And again, you know, we integrated well with the Wellington High School crew and that, you know, Thompson Street and those days, which is, very happy memories.
Where'd you grow up? I've got no idea what suburb you sprouted from.
Grew up in Karori, born in Newtown Hospital. Dad had a little practice there. Mum's, she was a school teacher kind of around there. She was at Wellington High School, and I think she even taught Kapisi and Danny Mulholland, Mickey D as well.
Parents born here or born in India?
Born here, yeah. Mum's Wonga Vegas.
So your grandparents came out. Both sides came out from India.
Both grandparents came out from Gujarat.
Did you know them?
Yes, so I met two of them, but two of them passed away prior to me being born, and then two of them I did meet. So and you know, came over. Fruit shops in Whanganui, one of the first ones, B. David and Co. And then,
you know, deep and meaningful. But were you brought up close to your Indian heritage, or is it something you've kind of come to on and off? Or
no, we were. You know, Dad was heavily involved and still is in the Indian Association.
Yeah. Did they speak Indian at home?
Yeah, but they didn't really push the language on us. I think because when they were growing up, they were very much like trying hard to be Kiwi, right?
Everyone everywhere around the world, everyone was about assimilating, right?
Yeah, and so they speak and can and write to some sort of degree, but you know, fluent in Gujarati, which is different to Hindi, but similar. But so they never really forced it on us. I remember going to like Sunday school growing up a little bit in that, and my auntie who was up here was good friends with like David Longy at the time, so you know, we always saw David around, and he was always around my auntie's house. She was
What's the Sunday school thing? That's Christianity.
No, there was like an Indian Sunday school that quarter we kind of go and learn the basics and hang out at sort of the...
Trained to be an athlete.
Trained to be... the cow.
Bro, I was going to joke you when you said to me you're an athlete on the DMs before he came over, because I found that podcast of the other Vishal Vasan, who's like a theoretical mathematician. I was going to joke in the DMs, but it's always like, will this come across right? It's better to do it like when you're facing someone. I was to say, bro, you're a dated Indian cliche, because now Indians for years have smashed the spelling bees in the States. Do you know about that?
I do know.
I saw that doco.
Yeah, very much so. I was always good at the numbers. My brother's much better at the older English than I am. I think I'm slightly better at maths than him. And my old sort of partner in crime growing up when we were in that geek class was a guy called Nick Lloyd, who was always really good at English and kind of the guy that I guess kind of got me into DJing as well. And part of the reason I moved to the UK. But
okay, here's my memory of Nick Lloyd. You have snapshots of being kids, even though I didn't really know the guys. I do believe, especially when a lot of the stuff was much more rare then, that he had these amazing red trainers he used to wear with his Wellington College uniform. Is that the same guy?
Yeah, it's the same guy. Well, his old man was...
That thing of like the few people whose dads went to the States, quote unquote.
Well, his old man was a conductor for Michael Lloyd for the NZSO, and he lived over in the UK while the family was here. And when he used to come back, he'd always be like, "Oh, what do you want, Nick?" And Nick would be, "I just want vinyl. Just bring me vinyl. This is the stuff I'm into." And it's kind of the reason I got into DJing. But he would come back with like suburban bass records, like jungle, you know, old school jungle stuff, roll the beats, you know, DJ hype, and we were just like, "What the heck is this?" You know, and all that UK sound rising high, and that's why, you know, and he had the first one to have an alternate jacket. So, you know, I grew up listening to tons of techno, you know, and tons of drum and bass.
The other thing is
like
if it was just a few. I've thought about this. It's come up on the show before, but whatever. Let's indulge. Like, it easily could have been our local student station. Like, had a bunch of people like who were influential there that were really into, like, let's say, jangly guitar music or whatever. But it just happened that everyone who was older than us that was like, "Hey, this is the good shit," was playing that across the board.
Yeah.
electronic music and urban music, and even though I hate that term urban, but you know, like we got a good diet on the radio that I just don't hear anywhere these days. You know,
yeah, not just the radio, but just Wellington at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've told this story a lot, especially in the UK. Was like growing up in Wellington, it was just such a melting pot of all different genres of music. You know, we were down with, and we were all friends. We all end up after partying at someone's house, and it was either the drum and bass crew that were doing bass stairs, or you'd end up with, you know, we knew the She-Hard guys, or the hip hop guys, and it was just like this, you know, Roots Foundation. I mean, what a time where we were just sort of all melted in, and we respected everyone's kind of musical love, but it was music that brought us kind of all together.
And up until a few years ago, I would have like gone, oh, this is probably just like every person in their 40s being nostalgic for a time and a place, but it's kind of written about now by people that aren't us. Like, you get those things that pop up. There was a Seattle scene, there was a this scene, there was a that scene, you know, just when the kind of stars align and other such cliches.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, a question that you know, it's one of those, like, it's like with musicians when you say like, oh, how did you first get into music? And they say, oh, you know, my parents had these records, this, that, and the other. I associate you like first and foremost with being kind of a hip hop DJ. So where did you? So separate to DJing, where did you kind of discover hip hop?
I think the first memory I really have been blown away by it was actually listening to a cassette tape from my cousin in Wanganui and listening to Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy, and absolutely going, what the fuck is this? Like,
if you only know commercial radio music, that stuff sounds like you've been given porn.
Well,
you know, like when someone gave me Metallica Ride the Lightning, I was like, geez, I should hide this under the pillow.
Well, he was like, you know, we would probably listen to commercial stuff before then, obviously we're, you know, top of the pops, head of the, you know, now this is what they call music, whatever it was. But then, you know, he was like, one day, you need to listen to Radioactive. This is the cool stuff. You know, he was a student, I was in my, you know, 10 and 11 or whatever. And then, of course, you know, get to hear this Public Enemy, and I think that was time. And he had an amazing record collection as well, actually, up in Wanganui. So there's, I think that was kind of the turning point. And then, obviously, being at university at that age, coming into contact with Radioactive, and then, of course, meeting Jazz, and, you know, always having a love of hip hop, and then being invited to do, you know, the Wednesday Night Jam, which is, I think, still our longest running radio show. He
didn't hate it, but he was uncomfortable with this comparison when I had him on the show. But in terms of energy and like, this is what you should be listening to and everything, he was kind of our Westwood.
Yeah, oh man, the guy.
He didn't like it when I said that, but you know, come on, in terms of like that.
Almost compared to that.
Well, not now, not knowing what we know now.
Jazz has always had encyclopedic.
Russell Brand, anyone? Sorry,
no, an encyclopedic knowledge of all things hip hop. Like there's certain people that are really good at, and I'm, you know, you're one of them, but you know,
not with hip hop at all.
But
man.
with hip hop, but just with and retaining information. You know, I know someone like Zane's obviously exceptionally good, Nick D, but also, you know, in regards to Jazz and his hip hop knowledge, I think, you know, if there was to be a hip hop quiz here, you'd want that guy on your team, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and another thing, this is again getting into the weeds, but I guess people who are going to listen to this are in the weeds with us, right? When I listened to a couple of his mix shows, which he'd ruthlessly spam everyone through the DMs. Like, I don't know if you're getting all those. Anyway,
love you,
but
Jazz.
what I know, totally. But what I noticed was, like, because years later, like, I couldn't articulate what I knew and heard 20 or 30 years ago, if that makes sense. And I'm like, shit, this guy has this. His track list selections are like really grimy underground shit, but he still keeps the tracks he selects kind of funky and accessible. It's you know what I mean? He's not playing like 8 Cannibal Ox records in a row that are real like freaky. He does a pop sensibility to underground stuff.
No, absolutely.
Which that's getting nerdy, but it's hard to do, right?
Yeah.
You know, would you agree with that?
Definitely. Now, I mean, I guess, and the other thing with that is that music is, as we know, so accessible. So you can do that and grab digital files and put it together, but having that knowledge to do that is something that he does exceptionally
But to keep it funky, so someone who like could go, I'm tapping my feet to this while it's like the most, like some guy who's got X amount of followers on Bandcamp, or, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Jazz has been doing it a very long time, you know, and again, sort of gave me that opportunity to going back to your original question, to, you know, get involved in the hip-hop scene, which was, you know, the Wednesday Night Jam, and then I think we were doing parties up at Globe Bar, remember that?
So, yeah, speaking of you and Carver, And speaking of gigs in Wellington back in the day, a few people I'm going to chat to V on the podcast. Do you know what came up in terms of you guys often with gigs?
Gosh, Monkey Boys, was that one?
Well, like the fact that whatever the gig was, whether it was a discotheque party or a Roots Foundation party or a radioactive party,
I think I know where this is
the most skilled, what we call the door bitches in Wellington, would almost get a bonus in their pay packet if neither V or Carver had been let in for free.
Yeah, it was.
How do you feel like that now? Now you're promoted gigs.
It was definitely a thing. Yeah. Hold my hand up, like that was Carver there. We were all part of the scene, and we all like to party with. Like I said, we moved between all different genres. So whether it was
I'm sure some people would just put you on the list without even asking to avoid the stress
exactly.
of the.
Well, we all knew each other, so
at
it was
the door.
Yeah.
It's a heady period, man. Like, it's that whole thing of like youth is wasted on the young. Like, I'd live it again only if I had my temperament and headspace that I do now. Sort of looking back, looking in. How do you end up over in London? Like, when I read that article in the Herald, I had no idea that you'd kind of done that first tour with Fat Freddy's as their DJ. So I'm just putting two and two together and guessing that tour was how you ended up in London?
Well,
in other words, were you planning to live there long term?
I'd actually been there. The first trip I did was in 99, and I went from...
Keep close to the mic.
Sorry. First trip I did was kind of, big OE by myself, 21 move. I went to Sydney, then on to actually Japan, and, that's 24 years ago, and then on to the UK, and been to see my friend Nick, and and to check out the clubs and the DJ scenes. Obviously fell in love with the UK, went out and visited Cayenne out in San Francisco. We actually went to the first ever Coachella, which was a lot different to what it is now. Back then the lineup for that was insane. Then ended up moving back to Melbourne for like a year. And it got to that point where I was like, I knew I wanted to be overseas somewhere. I was in New York as well. It was like, I'm either going to move to like New York or the Bay or the UK. And after living in Melbourne for like a year in 2000, I came back to Welly for a bit. And then, of course, Freddy's decided that they were going to do a tour.
So how are you doing all this travelling? Are you working as you go? Or was it just money saved up going on holiday?
I'd saved up money from working like the Matterhorn and whatever jobs. I think I was working Midnight Espresso as well at the time, and DJing, and then of course got a credit card which I was just using to max out, as you do as a 21-year-old.
Well, there goes the other rumour that they used to work at the Matterhorn and then owe them money at the end of the week. Anyway, sorry, continue.
There was a hefty tab. 2003 I think was that we decided, I went out with the Freddies, and that's when I kind of knew I wanted to stay in the UK, and my dream job was kind of, I love vinyl, love the record store culture. Berwick Street, where all the record stores were, was kind of like the haven of where I wanted to be. And we were doing a gig down at, I think it was called the Drunken Monkey down in Camberwell, where Flip used to play down there as well. And a guy just came up to me and goes, "Fuck, I love what you're playing." And then at that time was very much Ninja Tunes, Mo Waxy sort of stuff, instrumental hip-hop, pre-fuse, all that sort of warp, left of centre, instrumental, electronic hip-hop stuff. And offered me a job at his store, which was kind of at the time the leading electronic record store called Kubler.
That's a real right place, right time story, because like a lot of people get over there and try and get a job at like Record or Tape Exchange, and I even did the test with them, and they said you got a good general knowledge but not quite enough to get a role.
That's right.
So yeah, man, it's amazing.
Yeah, and then from then
good way to meet people.
Yeah, and my first flatmate there actually was Brad from the Next Men as well, so we were kind of all interwoven with, for the Kiwi connections, and then the record store, and I met a few other people. Dave Hudge, who's now living here, was this record distributor, so he used to drive around with a van and drop records off to me in the store, and then, we obviously became friends, and now we do.
Was he Arthur Daly, was delivery guy?
Yeah. Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and then obviously went on to Scenario Records, which was actually the biggest hip-hop store after Mr. Bongos, which was the record label that Next Men were signed in. So it's just kind of this progression of what was happening at the time. And
do you think it's fair to say, and like I don't say flat out no, because I wasn't there, but when I was in the UK in like 2000, there'd been a long tradition of like I can't remember what they're called, but Kontiki tours and going to like the Redback Bar and all of that kind of mainstream New Zealand and Aussie stuff that's still a tradition today. But it felt like kind of more cultural, creative New Zealand was having an influence in pockets of London. Like, with kind of the... Yeah.
Yeah.
Or am I romanticising that?
No. I think you're right. It wasn't. But prior to us, it was very much you go to the walkabout. You do your OE. You go
to a hard house party at the Brixton Academy.
You go to the church, and you get smashed on a Sunday, sort of thing. Funny story is that where that Kubler was, which was at my first record store in Berwick Street in Soho. Once we moved over to Ingestra Place, which was the original Sounds of the Universe, which we then turned into Scenario Records. I used to still drink at the pub next door to my old record store called The Endurance and sit there and, I could see the mail was kind of had a for lease sign on it for quite a wee while. And I could see the mail kind of building up. I was like, shit, this is such a prime location. I was like, who's moving in there? And one day I saw, the lease sign had gone and someone was moving in. And I saw someone, I was in the pub having a pint and saw this geezer, he's sort of standing there, unlocks the door and goes in. So I go running over. I was like, hey, bro, what's going on? He's kia ora, bro. Oh, we're going to put in a cafe. And I was just like, holy shit. And there's a guy called Cam who created what is now Flat White Coffee on Berwick Street. So that was my old...
Born? I don't know the word. That kind of started the New Zealand Aussie coffee.
What you're saying.
Yeah.
And so sort of
I've
from
spoiled
there...
it.
No, of course, and then... there's lots of amazing, like some of his guests. We were just talking about Matt Black from Caravan and all that. I think then there was kind of like a cool, foodie side of it. The cafe culture kind of came, and it did. Going back to your point, it kind of got away from that. Let's go get smashed at the walkabout to turn into the Freeze had kind of arrived. Specifics were happening. Lots of Kiwi artists.
So what was Kiwi House? That was around that as well, wasn't it?
Kiwi House is what we did for the 2012 Olympics, and that was like a fan zone for Kiwis and athletes to come and kind of experience it. We had a live feed that kind of fed back from New Zealand, so you're watching Sky Sports NZ rather than the UK commentary. Programmed in artists. I think I had Barney there, Holly.
Again, so on a slightly more culture tip than just going, it's a big beer barn where you smash out like the exponents.
But that was kind of just for the Olympics. But again, the Caravan guys had literally moved in right next door to where we did that, Central St. Martin's, and they're still there now. So I remember the day they kind of got their keys, we got the keys to the Kiwi House, and so you're right. So that was 2012, those Olympics. So
I'll tell you how that spread in Barcelona last week. I was in Barcelona last week. First morning with my boss, I'm like, oh, look, we should take a bit of a walk. Let's just go. I've just, Googled, as you do these days. You don't need any travel.
You've got a boss? I thought you were.
Yeah. I don't need any travel planning. So I go, okay, this cafe's got 4.7 stars. It's that way. So we walk all the way down there, and first morning in somewhere that's not local, right? You want to try their fare. And we get there, it's called the Fern something cafe. I hadn't clicked yet. And then it was like flat white coffees, avocado on toast. I go, my God, we're sitting in a Kiwi cafe, right? But it was like Kiwi inspired. So someone in Barcelona has set up a business there that's like basically, I don't know, they holidayed in New Zealand or whatever, but that would have been unheard of years ago, right?
Yeah.
They did it kind of weird. It was a huge, 200-300 grams of sour cream under the eggs, which was a lot. It's good.
It's probably cheaper than here as well, was it?
And nerd question, going back to that Freddie's tour, those like Crush records and stuff, they're great, but they're like, it's like playing dub. Like, how was it playing those tunes on those big festival systems and stuff? Was it a treat?
Oh, absolutely. Look, just, everything out there was, Well, prior to that, we weren't actually playing the festival. This is when Freddie's Warren was still in the band. So it was a lot smaller.
Like Fabric and places like that.
We did Fabric, but it was kind of like, that probably was the biggest. Like the rest of it were bars like Notting Hill Arts Club. I think we did Cherry Jam as well. They were pretty small. Like, this is early days of Freddie's, so we're not talking, Brixton Academy or... Ali Pally or anything like that. It was definitely a lot smaller crowd, a lot more, definitely more intimate, and
I think a lot of
still super fun.
The New Zealand fans don't quite appreciate how big they are in Europe still, and I think it just continues to grow, right?
anyone who's been following them on the gram, and
big underground acts.
Mark Slave's gram, I had to kind of switch that off for a little bit. It was a bit of FOMO, but it was, post the old COVID blip, that was put a bit of a delay on this tour that's happened. So I think people in Europe have been waiting for the Freddies to arrive again, and hard for
touring jobbers like that. That whole go away half the year, and that's your mahi in terms of the money side of things. It's a big blow.
Yeah, I think getting the time to be creative though, and obviously produce another album in the meantime, and so big up the Freddies.
14 years there, man.
Yeah.
Because that's a long time to be somewhere like London, man. Did it fly by? Or did it seem like a long...
Thinking back in it now, yes, it's absolutely flying by. Once you're kind of engrossed in it and you're doing it, I mean, there was lots going on over obviously that period and that, and was lucky enough to kind of travel back towards the end. I was coming back every other year, which was great. Yes, it definitely flew by, but loved every minute. Like, I guess when I got there after a few years, I decided that I wanted to become British, and at that time it was open up to the EU if you got a British passport as well, pre-Brexit, so I was like, shit, if I get this passport, it opens up all of Europe. I've got my Kiwi passport, so I kind of worked towards that, and that was kind of a bit of a goal for me, working to get my British passport, which I got after about 8 years, and of course it was like, cool.
Have you still got it?
Yeah. If you've got a passport, you have a passport. But now
you can go to one tiny little island in Europe.
Now they've taken away the whole. The EU as well. But
look, on so many different levels of society, like the economy, politically, it affects people. Like when I was at that conference, there was a woman from the UK saying that her typical trip to Spain, where you go through the EU passport holders, was like nearly an hour and a half in the queue waiting for... So what I mean, so even on a real micro level, it's just made the UK have to do everything tougher. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. The old bricks.
So 10 years on your LinkedIn says it was W1, which is kind of basically the way I see it. You saying you did kind of an extended hustle for 10 years, right? You managed to work for yourself there. That's really hard somewhere like London. So what sort of things were you doing?
There was obviously the Kiwi House 2012, and then what else did we do? I set up my own little label, which was The Elephant, which was kind of a bit of a passion project out of just meeting kind of producer heroes like Vadim, obviously Red Astaire, Blue Rum MC, being able to work with the Next Men guys, a couple of Kiwi acts, Del Rey and that. And that was when vinyl was obviously thriving and pre-digital and pre-Serato.
I'd love to know, for such a small boutique label releasing good music, do you mind telling me what kind of numbers you were shifting?
Only I think 500.
Still,
but back then, it was like you put them on a shelf and they'd kind of go, and people loved that they were kind of limited. It was a time that GAM was kind of heaving, and people were flipping instrumentals with acapellas.
There's a GAM section.
Well, exactly. Jay Star was doing great stuff. All these people and as soon as you could put records out, people were just snapping them up because you didn't have access to them. Otherwise, it wasn't like you could get a digital file of them. You just had to have that tangible record.
So you wouldn't consider doing a bigger run like they did with some of those, big drum and bass and hip hop tunes and stuff?
At the time, it was definitely a passion project, labour of love sort of thing. So I didn't want to. If you end up with a whole lot of records sitting in your office or at your house,
like the guy that wrote a book who's like, I can't put this car in his garage because
he's got
2,000 copies
of the book. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so part of that, I also ran a little club night in Camden at the Lockside Lounge, which I think any Kiwi DJ that came through happened to guest up there, which was we did that for over 10 years, and shout out to Dave Johnson for.
But in terms of the day-to-day living, the bottom line, the rent, Well, I was going to say, is it just it's just careful bookkeeping and just going, okay, I've done that project now. I've got this much time to do that.
No, I was always working, always either at the record store, and then I'd always be DJing afterwards. You know, so would be have Thursday gigs, Friday. At one point, I was DJing 7 nights a week in London, which was absolutely bonkers.
Good for money, though.
Great for money, not good for your health.
I was at the peak of it. I was doing 4 nights a week in Melbourne, and again, it was like a great way to make decent money in a relatively short period of time compared to like Hospo or whatever sort of things at the time. But yeah, it got a bit, I know you were talking about the kind of like being out all the time side of it, but for me it got a bit weird when I said to my girlfriend at the time, like, I'm off to work. That's when I realised kind of the fun had fallen out of it.
100%. Oh, Vibe Bar. So there was another great time was, you know, when I was down Brick Lane, we had a massive courtyard down there. And that's how I met like the Channel 1 guys and started doing the NZLDN parties, which was kind of a shout out to New Zealand and London. Yeah. I think we had the Super Groove boys through, Lady and Breaks Co-op, and we did that every year, and that all came about through chance meeting. It wasn't really chance, it was kind of a planned meeting with one of my best mates, Lani, who was at the time the Steinlager Pure rep over there. So I met her at a Waitangi.
She was the chef at the Matterhorn for a minute, eh?
No, different Lani.
Oh, yeah,
Lani.
okay.
This is South Island Lani, that's North Island Lani.
Stewart Island Lani.
Yeah. Right. Long story short, I managed to get Steinlager Pure to sponsor these events for many years, and we had a ton of sort of Kiwi. It's always been sort of pushing the NZ music styles over in the UK, and you know, and that's kind of, I think, part of
and
that.
so I think again, like coming back to dating things, you were there 2002 to 16. I'm just
I first went in 99, and then probably
living there,
3 to 13. I think 10 years there. Yeah.
Last time I was there was in 2000, which was ages ago. It was post Red Bull Academy with Flick and Mickey D and all of them. Not that we all ended up there together, but I'm hoping to make it back next year. That's a long time between drinks. What changed in London while you were there, man? Because it's a long time to be somewhere. So I'm just interested in how a city changes over that time. It's an amazing city, man. It is an amazing
city. I went back last year for Carnival, which is still, you know, one of my favourite events.
Carnival. I cried at Carnival. I've told that story many times on the podcast.
There you
too.
go. You just can't beat it. You know,
I cried with joy. I cried with joy.
Of course.
Small tears under my sunglasses that no one saw.
Yeah, I got to become good friends with the Channel 1 guys. Who's, I think arguably the longest running sound system of Notting Hill Carnival, Mikey and Caleb, and got lucky enough to bring them back to New Zealand and tour them here. We did a mini tour many years ago, 2012, 13, 14, around that time as well. And so I got to just turn up there and surprise him as I was setting up the sound system. And again, it's the tears of joy. You know, all you need is a cold red stripe, don't even smoke, maybe a cheeky spliff and some curry goat, jerk chicken, and you're just there, right? And it's the sound, the smell. Nothing beats Carnival, especially on you know, when the weather's
just that level of colour and, like you say, smell and sound taking over a city. Like to that level, It's just, I've said, like, really idealistically, and I know we're years off here, and in terms of like the rapid immigration to Auckland, but Auckland needs something kind of similar to that. Because I'm a firm believer that food and music is a kind of way to kind of go. You know, there's a Chinese community here, there's an Indian community here, there's a, you know, whatever, you know, insert XYZ here.
Maybe we should take this chat offline afterwards. Huh? You heard it here first.
Hey, look! Listen, I had it with Gene because I know he's another mover in these regards ages ago, and he concurred, but I think he's semi-retired from that kind of malarkey. If you want to take it on, then it's fine.
Joint force.
Another thing I wanted to ask was, did you see, based on being in the record store all that time, was the arse already falling out of physical sales, like before you left London?
Yeah, the griminess of it started going. I think, you know, obviously digital sales really knocked the record stores, and one by one they did kind of shut down. You know, it was sad because there's, and I think I spoke about it in that Herald article, was that, you know, we'd go out, there's a group of us that all DJ'd and would have X amount of money. We'd kind of go wandering around the streets of Soho and beyond, and then we'd all meet up at the local boozer and go through what everyone had bought, because you had limited amount of funds, right, to do it. And then you'd be, oh shit, he got that, you know, Brad got that, or Tubbs got that, and then that night someone would play and you'd be like, fuck, why didn't I get that tune? You go back and try and get it, and it was gone. There's no digital version. You spend the next few months trying to track it down. Someone would have pulled it out and they say, oh, V's here. Oh, you like that tune? Oh, play it now. Hey, you don't have this one, do you? You know?
And even that, like, shopping at Record and Tape Exchange, like a really much more fruitful version of Real Groovy in a way in terms of what we're into. Like just finding something that you've been after for years for like £4 is quite a good feeling.
Well, that's when you talk about buying porn, when you kind of get it, and it's like, oh, it's a pound, I shouldn't really be buying this. You take it up to the counter and you get out of it.
I had no common sense back then. I was into, really, my lane of buying was American house and techno. So I'm in London like buying imports, you idiot.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
Actually, I was just in Melbourne last week, and I was staying with Sean Deans, who obviously used to work at drum and bass DJ, used to work at Flipside as well back in the day, and we were just reminiscing over those days in New Zealand where you'd literally, the buyer would call or get a call or ring from the distributor. You know, they'd come through and you get the fact sheet and you took off. But sometimes literally you'd be listening to tracks down the phone, you know, of listeners. Oh yeah, I'll take 2 of those. Or take, and so that's why I think, you know, I was thinking about a lot of the records that we kind of got were probably, we probably missed out on a few of the big ones because they went to massive runs. So when you did get the UK and you found stuff because it was there, it was quite readily accessible in the UK, but wasn't available.
No, you're right, and it was down. It was down to like the nous of your record shop owner in terms of when they heard those down the phone, thinking about who was in Wellington, or insert city here,
exactly,
and buying this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
But that's similar to like the first time I got to London, and you know, I'd never encountered those kind of like those record shops that are almost like the classic Kiwi fish and chip shop where it's just a counter and the dude just goes bang, bang, bang and plays stuff and you put your hand up when you want one of them, those dub vendor kind of places.
Peckings, man, West London is still one of my favourite record stores.
I found it in Brixton, that kind of thing where you have to go, yep, I want one, and I'm all self-conscious.
Exactly. As soon as it's down, you put one on, one turns over, listen to the other side.
The first time you go to Black Market and go, man, I'm at Black Market. I hope that place has survived. I actually saw a post the other day. I
think that he's still DJing, but I don't think the store there. Of them, it's like Phonica's still going, Sounds Universe, Record Tape Exchange, and
when you start to feel a bit older, and this is like it's already started happening over 10 years ago, is when you go, oh my god, that producer, and I forget his name in the specific example, but someone you'd know, his uncle's Ray Keith. And you go, wait, but Ray Keith's real young. He's my age. So no, hang on a minute.
No.
But one of those guys like Julio Bashford or someone who's well known is like, there's all those connections now of that next generation of guys coming through. That's the other thing with cities like London is that real deep lineage of music, you know, going back far. So what signalled coming back? Just good old homesickness, or did it run its course, or?
Just time to see the family.
Would you come back intermittently and see them? Or?
Yeah, no, I was, and that was the beauty. I think when I first moved to London, it was a few years before I came back. You know, mainly due to finances and that, and then slowly it became every 2 years, and towards the end it was every year.
Which is a huge undertaking travel-wise.
So long, you know. It's just like, you know, getting halfway around to Singapore, LA is always like doable, and you got to do it again, you know.
And Dubai Airport's a shithole. I don't care what anyone says. And everything's really expensive.
No need to go through Dubai for me. But, you know, being able to break it up. And, I mean, looking back on it now, it's all doable, wasn't it? You know, it still is. So. But,
so you just came back for a sea change, see the family, that stuff, you know, not to put words in your mouth, but someone said to me, it stuck with me, like your 20s is about trying to get as far away from your family as you can, and then your 30s onwards is about kind of, you know, it's just being young and, you know,
absolutely
flipping that. What was the plan what did you embark on when you got back here? Wellington? I couldn't figure out where in New Zealand you lived for a while. You felt like a bit of a Carmen Sandiego kind of suitcase living guy?
Yeah, I came back to Welly, obviously to see the family, and then got offered a role up here and doing all the Britomart stuff with those guys through Paul Franich and Luce and those guys who were setting up Seafarers there. I think they had Tyler Street Garage and Ibiza at the time, and then we went on to do kind of, because I got into members clubs in the UK towards the end, which I was working at the Hospital Club, which is old Dave Stewart from Eurythmics.
That's very flesh. I got into lock-ins with large bottles of Coke and one spirit because the licensing hours are different. Then continue.
Yeah. So he ran a place called the Hospital Club where he used to DJ and sort of did events, and then also there's a members bar called Bungalow 8, which I was DJing and sort of knew all the guys who had set that up. So when I came back to NZ, Paul was kind of like, hey, these guys want to do this, got this vision to do a members bar here, would you be interested in kind of helping out with marketing and events? And came and met them, and then ended up working there for a few years, getting that all set up, and part of the role was, working out the reciprocal membership clubs.
And that was the place with the more public Japanese joint, right? I came to your birthday there, I think.
There was Fukuko down the bottom. Down in the Britomart, which we all used to hang out.
So how's a members bar play out in New Zealand? How many members were there?
It's not like Soho House,
because New Zealand would be like maybe the fucking members club.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Well,
but,
the beauty of, I think my old flatmate in London wrote the line. It's like where commerce and culture collide, and you can do that in London because you got the Soho House and there's young designers there hanging out poolside. And
like David Seymour and three All Blacks.
there's the guys. Well, it ended up being sort of quite white and shiny up there, and we were
white and shiny.
We were hanging out down in the Fukuoka, sort of having a cheeky drink at midday. But it was cool, and the great vision, and did some cool events there. There was like a thing called Spark Lab in the middle, which we got. Yeah,
I remember coming to some of those.
The DJ stuff and the thing with Moo up there, and a comedy night.
And that's when I noticed, like, there seemed to be a real trend in New Zealand of people, like, kind of having an arsenal of bars and venues and restaurants. Down in Britomart, there was like Johnny and those guys with Country Club and that. Is it
it's
still
that West Side Story, wasn't it?
Is it still like that? Is that a phase that's kind of gone? Like, it seemed like they were trying to kind of building a real estate portfolio. It was like, how many places have you got? You got 7 down there. How's that sustainable?
Well, I think that's still going on. Some of them have gone even in large portfolios. But that's it.
Yeah, good person to have in your Rolodex. That's an analog. That's an analog reference. Oh, but I did feel like you were like, because I noticed with this. So for people unaware, Jacob, I'm about to talk about, was a bartender at the Matterhorn back in the period we started off talking about, and I always remember he seriously, like, with no irony or joke, wanted to be Prime Minister of New Zealand one day, but he veered away from politics and ended up being a kind of very kind of global alcohol ambassador. And I just wondered, like, for me, like, I like my creature comforts and I'm a bit prone to anxiety and stuff, so that kind of living in a suitcase is quite full on. But I felt like you were doing a bit of that for a while, eh? You're a bit more grounded, were you?
Well, Jacob and I
making that up.
No, you're right. And
it's like records and storage here, stuff there.
I was definitely
a bag in London,
nomadic for a wee while. And it's funny because there was a joke that Jacob and I were going to start a little travel show at one point. I think Zen made it up, but we were meeting each other all around, and I wasn't too sure where I wanted to be. And I do love traveling. Lucky enough to have good friends, and if you're DJing, you can always pick up gigs somewhere at that time, and it was still kind of romantic. I was enjoying it, and being involved with Jacob, he was kind of doing the drinks to a lot of stuff. I mean, we did the Art Biennale in Venice, we did a whole lot of shows when he was with 42 Below. I was kind of like the go-to DJ for them, so I was traveling around, and Jeff Ross was still at the helm then, and it was a great time. We were going to these crazy cities. At one point we were in Perpignan, and then we were in Paris doing this, and it's super exciting as a young guy traveling and DJing and seeing the world and getting paid and staying in hotels. Of course.
Have you had your bloods done recently, bro?
She's all right, actually.
I did the same recently. I was very surprised.
Oh, we are middle of it. Speaking of mega memories, Jacob Breyer is the one who also...
He's a lovely guy.
He knows...
Smart, he's a lovely guy.
I could talk to him about... and he'd be like, that's the time in London that this happened, dum, 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 dum. And he'd, list it off, and it's like...
I remember him and Dave Benge, because they're only a little bit younger than me, like starting out as kind of like keen... VUWSA, Vic Uni kind of student event grommets, and then Dave ended up kind of running student events at AUT. And Jake, so is Jacob still running around with a suitcase full of
he's a dad
booze?
now. He's in he's in LA. He's in London now, actually, and he's coming back to get married soon.
And are you more settled now? Do you have a house? Do you have a room? Do you have some records in your place?
I have a house here in Auckland, which is nice. A place called home. Because prior to that, I think one thing I was going to say was the Queenstown years. There was a long time that I was down in there, which was kind of the bit you thought that I was travelling around quite a bit. But I think
you run a clever social media operation
down there for a few years, and absolutely loved being down there.
You do seem really adept at globetrotting, though, eh? Right? So just kind of tying in travelling somewhere with a job or a...
Yeah, Mum calls it non-committal. I call it nomadic.
I'm not your mum.
Yeah. No,
I do want to see those bloods.
Yeah.
I was only away from New Zealand in terms of living away for like 6-7 years, right? And it was a culture shock coming back. Was it a culture shock coming back to live here? Also, New Zealand changed heaps over that period of time.
The first time I actually came back, because it'd been a few years from UK, I was just like, holy shit, this place is like small, and wow, it's where are all the brown and black people? Because you got used to that in London, you know, all of a sudden you're in Brixton, and just full, you know, melting pot of cultures and all that. And then I went to Australia and went, well, fuck, way better than Oz. That was just scary. But, yeah, you know, like I said, you know, being able to come back quite often meant that you never really lost touch with NZ. So it wasn't a culture shock coming back. And it was kind of, I think I was kind of ready. I definitely miss, you know, certain things about the UK. And that don't miss, like, running around in the tube every, 5 minutes. Everything takes an hour there, you know, whereas here everyone kind of jokes. You're
saying that Auckland public transport is better than...
Well, I live right in the, sort of walking distance to K Road and the pond, so I kind of walk everywhere, which is great. Yeah, so I only drive when I have to, but people joke that I don't leave the 5K radius of where I need to be. So
well, this is a deep cut in terms of the podcast episodes, because I think he was less than in the first 20 episodes. But when I talked to Otis Chamberlain, he literally said that for about 10 years he didn't leave those 3 blocks of that Cuba Street radius.
I think we were living together at the same time.
I don't think he wouldn't even go to the beach or anything in Wellington. He just lived in that. It was like a Pac-Man game, right? Until he moved away for a while. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I think it was good to get out for a while. It's good.
Maybe that's where he comes from. Maybe that's why I don't,
That guy, he is, and I think I remember saying in the intro, he is one of the most kind of multi-talented, creative people I know. Like the ability to play drums like that, and then guitar, and then paint at the level he does.
Skateboard as well.
Skateboard, right?
Yeah.
That's the same thing with Paolo. Like people don't realize that kind of action sports, freaking good at everything. Yeah. Pains me.
Yeah, and really nice guys.
Yeah. You still DJing much?
Yeah, I am actually. So I've kind of got back into the love of it. Post that sort of DJing 7 nights a week. It just the ass fell out of it. When you're doing it as a job and you kind of wake up and you're like, I've got to DJ again. It's not fun and becomes a job and a chore. But now kind of pick the battles. I do every second Thursday with my guy PK and Slipe at Conch, which we love.
PK.
Then every Friday with Manuel, and so that we call it like men's mental health group. Well, I do anyway, and we get myself and Manuel and a different guest along. And we just get to shoot the shit, and
nice.
what a pleasure DJing with Manuel every Friday up in Bedford. And then Friends of Whānau, me and Bobby and Hudge sort of do a little monthly up at PSC and that. So yeah, just slightly more sporadical now, but it's fun.
It's funny after stepping away from it from so long, and then also like controllers and Serato coming along in that time, where like I used to have all these disparate BPMs and ideas that I kind of tried to tag together. I think I'm actually the best at it I've ever been on the occasional times I do it. That also comes with time, right?
Yep.
Comes with time. But it's sort of ironic to me that, when I was out smashing it out all those times a week, that I'd actually be a better version of that now by a long shot.
Yeah.
No, but that technology, I mean, imagine traveling, this is goofy, but imagine traveling back from the future and like presenting like a controller like you can get now to like 1998. So what the hell?
See, even when I'm on Serato, I literally use it like a record box. Like I don't even use the cues and the buttons to
yeah, but you can still have a glance over and look at the BPMs and all that if you want to.
Yeah, but it's literally like.
But it's also that
drag.
Unlimited selection.
That song's there. That song's there, and that's all I do. I use it so that my back doesn't get thrown out.
With sync, which I accidentally have turned on a couple of times and it's messed me up. Like it's just a like how you learn thing. But to me, that's actually harder than like playing the way we learned.
I think I hit it once by mistake. When Leon Coda was down in Queenstown, he did a gig and I hit it and then just didn't know how to get out of it. BPMs were like just slowing down, pitch was going. I was just like, what are you doing? He's just standing there laughing at me. A for hitting the sync button.
But I think some people now, and again, it's not a diss, it's not a criticism. As long as it works, everyone uses tools different ways. No. But I think a lot of people come up mixing with their eyes now before their ears, which is easy to do with that software, right?
100%. And that's always been the gag with it. People just like staring into their laptops when they're DJing, and as people do, staring into their phones.
But I'll tell you this though: I've learned that if you don't, this is my belief, if you don't embrace the future, or like if you're kind of like are stuck in the past, that never kind of works out a lot of the time. Like in 2000 at the Red Bull Academy, John Acquaviva, who's like an offsider of Richie Horton, had Final Scratch, and none of us had ever seen it before. So for everyone who's going, what the fuck is he talking about? It was the first example we'd all seen as a bunch of DJs from all around the world of a virtual record being able to control files with the whole room. We were all like, everyone was just like up in arms, like this is the worst idea ever. You know, people were really conservative and weird about it because I think it kind of like challenged everything that you come up on and all that, keep it real and vinyl and all of that, you know. But look at where we are. There's an arms race for all that gear now of all the manufacturers.
Yeah. I still miss the feel of wax and being able to hear the kick and the snare, actually feel it in your, in the grooves, and then especially like as a hip hop DJ and scratching, you'd always be able to, feel that in the actual record itself. So
let's talk about this Freddy project, meaning not Fat Freddy's, but Freddy Krueger. My introduction to this, I know of Freddy Krueger, Frederick Lager's work, because funnily enough, that Running From Love record that you talk about, completely independent of you, I found in a bin in Melbourne at a record shop with no context, and just like you, back when I was playing a lot, it didn't leave my crate ever. Even if I was changing out a whole lot of other records that never left, it still gets played a lot of the time now. So there's that. And then I met him once when I was stage managing a rhythm in Alps. But you actually got close mates with the guy, and then fast forwarding a whole lot of things, he kind of really sadly died really young a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
And you've decided to kind of like do something in and around that sort of weird ending to everything.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Discuss. Well, yeah, I mean, those that sort of, know his music, or if you don't, he's a Swedish producer who somehow had this knack of making absolute soulful reggae sort of infused bangers
that work anywhere, like on a dance floor, in a cafe.
Well, yeah. And they were heard kind of globally, and the mashups that he did, like the D'Angelo one became the anthem from Giles Peterson through to Jazzy Jeff, and again, you talk about records that never leave your record box. It was like his records. There's always been an occasion to drop if shit was going wrong in a set. You just put that on and it'll get you out of there.
I like Googling when I listen to podcasts. So for anyone who doesn't know, Google Running From Love. It's under the Freddy Krueger moniker,
Freddy
right?
Krueger, yes.
Running From Love. And you'll probably know it if you've been out in New Zealand.
And then he also had a pseudonym, is that right?
Red Astaire.
Red Astaire, which was when he kind of did bootleg stuff, which was under the radar. Which was on the Gams that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. So it was just a chance meeting at the Jazz Cafe, still live up the road in Camden. People may know the story already, but
no, they don't, mate.
Well, we chance meeting. We were there. I think we went to see some band at the time. They would always do a band, then they'd have a special guest DJ afterwards. And this week happened to be Freddy Krueger. So, of course, went along to check it out. I can't remember who the band was, but massive Freddy Krueger fan, from NZ days. And, of course, went to the bathroom, towards the end of the night and ran into Freddy, it's there. And I was just like, oh, shit. Hey, man, are you Freddy Krueger? He's like, yeah, man. I was like, oh, cool, massive fan of yours. I'm actually from New Zealand, and your music's reached us down there. We're kind of big fans, and especially me as a DJ, I thrash Running From Love. He's like, oh, shit, man, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. Then go upstairs, and, he'd finished DJing, was kind of having a yarn. And some friends of mine were having a little after party around the corner. So I was like, hey, bro, do you want to come for a drink with us? And he's like, yeah, man, why not? So he packed up his records. Next thing you know, we're kind of rolling up around the road to the Muse, Camden Muse, and sort of roll into a friend's place. And we sit down and just, a few after-party drinks and just shooting the shit. And, yeah, I was at Scenario, and I wanted to start the label because it was a time when, I was kind of not just living on zero, and started, saving some money. And I always wanted to do my own little record label. And then I had a few connects that I was meeting through the store that were like, cool, I could release them. A lot of people bring demos into me as well, like, listen to this, young hip hop acts. And also, became friends with people like Vadim and Blue Rum, who were established. I was hearing all their new music. So I kind of had this access to this amazing unreleased music. Freddie and I hit it off, and then he's like, shit, man, you should come out to Sweden, to Stockholm. You ever been? I was like, nah. He was like, yeah, come on out. So that, next couple of days, I booked like a Ryanair and an EasyJet flight, you know,
like
whatever
a bus,
it was.
You stand up and hold the pole.
Well, that's it. I think I flew the
people
plane
with chickens in cages, you know.
And flew out to Stockholm, and he's like, come, you know, invited me to come and stay with him and his wife at the time, and we just hit it off. I don't know if I DJ'd out there, or we just kind of hung out, and you know, he just played me a ton of music, unreleased stuff, and was like. And I told him about the label that I wanted to start. Funny enough, Otis Chamberlain is the one who did the design for me, The Elephant, tying it all back in. The label's called The Elephant, and Freddie ended up, you know, I selected 2 tracks, and they were the first 2 releases that I did on the label.
And I looked. I already knew about that, V, but I looked at the Discogs today because when I read the Herald article, it's great, man. It's like you've got it's awesome. You've got a catalogue of records that you put out. 6.
6. Fifth. Well, this is going to be the 5th one actually, which is I ended up having Red Astaire and Vadim do a remix of a friend of mine called DRW, who was like a singer-songwriter, quite bohemic, is that the word?
Don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, he lived down in Ibiza and between UK and was a singer-songwriter. I managed to get these guys who are kind of the top of the game of that sound in sort of UK, Europe, you know, Red Astaire and Vadim at the time. But unfortunately, this was the time that Serato was taking over digital, not just Serato, but digital, and record stores were shutting down. And to do the cost of pressing it all up was just never going to... it just didn't happen. And so it never saw the light of day. Q2 last year when Freddie passed away.
Oh, this is so cool. I didn't realise that. This is a abandoned project reimagined.
And this is kind of it. He passed away, and when, 2008, I actually was like, you've got to come to New Zealand. I need to return this favour of you, you know, opening up your house in Sweden. And, you know, we became friends. I got him to come and DJ with me quite often to London. I'd be travelling over there. He had another label called Swedish Brandy, and so I'd go and DJ over there. I was going back and forth, you know, maybe twice a year to Stockholm, which was kind of crazy for me.
Getting those mad Ryanair points.
Yeah, and the snooze. Remember that snooze stuff that you've kind of chucked in under your gums? You ever had that?
Did that come with the Ryanair ticket? Or
Lucky strike, yeah. So I managed to get him kind of over a few times. And one day I was like, you've got to come to New Zealand. And at the time when Splore was on, and so I did a little tiki tour between Melbourne and Sydney. We did Splore, we did an Auckland show, did a Wally show, came to Mum's house for a curry, met all the crew, the Freddies. And he just loved it here. Everyone showed him so much love, you know.
That New Zealand hospitality.
That New Zealand hospitality, but he just fit right in, you know, the music there. And he also he managed to had this sort of shitty DV camera and just videoed everywhere that we kind of went, of course, you know, just constantly. And he's like, one day we'll do a video. Got this beautiful.
So you got archival footage as well.
Well, yes, and we had this beautiful moment when we went out to Piha with Kyan, and he met Mariner for the first time.
Yeah,
and you can imagine those two meeting each other, you know, just like nerding out, seeing the Sims. He's like, "Where are we? What is Piha? It's like a jungle. It's amazing." And Andy, of course, you know, hit it off, and the rest is kind of history. And so when he passed away last year, it kind of happened out of the blue. Obviously, you know, he wasn't sick, and like
it's shocking. It's shocking when that happens with people. Yeah. Anyway,
you know,
just acknowledge how bad it's fucked. It's bad. It's like it shook me, and I didn't know him.
Yeah, you know, and then of course I kind of had to do the ring around and let everyone, you know, that he'd met here and touched, and let them know. So it was tough, and I guess I'm kind of just skipping over it a little bit because it's quite emotional to chat about it.
Sure, man. That's what I mean. Just talk about what you're doing with it. Yeah.
And so from that, I think I went to an old laptop. I was like, went through. I had a little like time capture of a whole lot of stuff that was in storage, and kind of went through it. I think I was reminiscing. I wasn't really looking for anything, but managed to find all the DV tapes. And I'm not too sure how I ended up with his tapes, but I think when we were going to do another release, I was like, let's cut them together when I was in like UK, and I ended up with them. So I found them all, and then I also found an old laptop, and when I opened it up, I found the Red Astaire remix of the DRW and the Vadim one, and I was just like, well, it's kind of meant to be. It's like, let's put all this together, see what happens, and it turned out the tunes were amazing. They were already mastered. I had them mastered by a guy called Alan Maudsley, who did like Roots Maneuver and all the Next Men stuff. Rung up Vadim and Yara Brava and said, hey, I've got these tunes. I want to do something with them. do you mind? And they're like, of course. And I was just like, I want to donate the money to his 2 boys in Sweden. And so I'd love to release them. So I got the blessings from his family, got the blessings from Vads and Yara. And then we started sort of going through the tapes. And again, it was so bittersweet, you know, seeing all these sort of crazy moments. It's got Lady in Parks in there. It's got our tour of Australia. It's got Explore, Turnaround Boys, the adventure out to Piha, my mum, you know. And so we've ended up actually cutting a music video, which we're going to do a little release for. But we've also ended up pressing the vinyl and digital sales. And that's going to see the light of day in the next month or so, and all proceeds are going to go to his 2 teenage boys now in Sweden. So
and like boutique runs of vinyl have kind of become a real thing again. So that's an easy.
Yeah, it's a Red Asterium. It's going to do some red vinyl. Another thing is that the guy called Simon Andres, who's a designer who did the original artwork for me in 2006 was the year we were going to release it, I think, or 2006, I think it was. Yeah. And he was in New York, and now he's moved back here. And I said, can I use the original artwork? And he's like, hell no, but I'll do you a new one because it's dated. So shout out to
that's folks awesome.
Yeah.
I get it. It's the classic like creative who's like really proud of their work. Is like, you thought he's going to like, no, IP, bro. But it's like, no, I need to do you a new one. That's dated
now. So shout out to Simon Sly, who's done the artwork. Yeah, and everyone's come together. Mark Fernie, who does DJ Fui, helped me edited and directed the video together. There was sessions out at Tiana at his place, which has been a bit of a passion project. So nice that it's all seeing the light of day. And that's going to be on the Elephant as well, which...
Well, it's a bit of a palate cleanser with that sort of sad origin of that project in a second. When I go to our listener mailbag, we don't often have listener mailbag. We have them for a few episodes, but I do have some listener questions for you. But before that, do you want to quickly speak on, because this kind of speaks to your whole way of kind of operating, everything we've talked about, in a way of like kind of connecting people together, connecting organisations together, making creative projects happen. A little bit on noise control, and the bit that I'm curious about is it seems like the tag on its New Zealand Music Project is like kind of navigating or helping musicians in a post-COVID world. That's the bit that caught up with me. Is that to do with like the fact that the bottom fell out of the touring and all of that stuff? And
yeah, it kind of came back. You remember BK from old Flying Fish days?
I do. Mahi's uncle,
Lita Mahori, and him set up the old Flying Fish. We were out fishing one day. He was my fishing buddy, and I think that the Flying Fish studio in Ponsonby kind of been made a bit redundant post, like 7 days had stopped filming up there and that. And it was always like, do you want to do something with the space? And it was at the time, I think we started the conversation pre-COVID, then we went into COVID, and I was like, shit, we need a New Zealand music show. There's no New Zealand music show here. And then it was also, as COVID happened, it was about Save Our Venues, you know, the whole Save Our Venues campaign and all that sort of thing. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to do something that was, you know, promoting New Zealand music, whether it's in London through these NZL DM parties, the Kiwi House, the Olympics. And the idea was that it was kind of a cross between Colours, you know, Berlin versus like Jules Holland.
Oh, not Colours, the iced tea.
No, not Colours. Okay. No, not that one.
Oh, that's what I thought. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, and the beauty is that it's in the heart of Ponsonby, right? You've got this amazing studio that's there in between, you know, Prague, where the rich guys go, and KFC, where I'll be at, you know.
And it's a pro studio that's been around for ages.
It's not like having to be in Wellington and travelling out to Avalon or something, you know. It's right in the heart of Ponsonby. So we kind of wrote up this idea for it, and then got involved with a few other people. James Moore, who's the managing director of Fish, myself, BK, a guy called Paul Courtney, who was at Cleanser at the time, and we all kind of put in some cash, and post-COVID, we kind of during COVID, we actually did auditions to try and find our host for the show, which was a perfect time because everyone's at home, and give us a minute as to why you should be here and tell us your experience.
Did you get my tape?
Got your tape? Yeah. We'll talk about that later. Okay. Yeah. And then after COVID, we shot a pilot. And that was, I think, almost 3 years ago now.
Wow.
You know, the blip. Yeah. But what it did, it kind of showed us what we shouldn't do. You know, it was very much top of the pops and very much, hey, come back after the break. Hey, do this. Make some noise. Yeah. And we kind of watched it and went, oh, fuck, we spent a bit of money on this, and it's fucking terrible. Well, it's not terrible, but it's what we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So then we we didn't want to go down the TV route. We kind of wanted a bit more freedom in that. And at the time, Stuff were doing this thing called Stuff Play, which was like hosting content with the likes of Complex and Vice and Red Bull. And Karen Hirschfeld was up there at the time. So we kind of met with him and them, and they wanted to have a hero sort of alter own piece on there instead of other content. So we kind of worked with them to create this. So they were going to be our broadcast partner. So you watch it on Stuff, which gives us the eyeballs for, accessible around the country. So you're not just talking, to the same sort of demographic, whatever. You're reaching the whole country.
Yeah. It's actually having impact for what you're trying to do with it.
And so then we found some new hosts, and then of course we were lucky enough to get Spark on board, who gave us some marketing power and help fund it and put it together.
So when does it all? It's already launched, right?
It's already launched. So we've shot the first season, 10 episodes, and each week there's a new episode that's dropping on Stuff, and then we're kind of creating a box set of it all as well. Just had a new episode today. Emma Dilemma's come out, but we've had the likes of Troy Kingy, Try, Mellow Downs,
and one part of it that I'll toot your horn for you, because you haven't mentioned it, is aside from all this corporate support, which is important in the studios and stuff, you've got the support of a whole lot of like organisations that actually are all about kind of supporting New Zealand music at the core, like Recorded Music New Zealand, APRA, IMNZ, and so on. So, choice, bro. Do you want to go with the listener mailbag? There's only 2 questions. I reckon we're nearly done. We can open up the store and get some fresh air. Okay, so David from Rakino Island asks top 3 MCs.
Oh gosh, top 3 MCs.
And I added.
Well, this David from Rakino is David used to run the Lockside Lounge that we were referring to. We used to run
these are mailbag people you've never met before.
Never met before.
On, right.
Top 3 MCs. Chuck D, because he's he started it off for me. When we listened to it without in Public Enemy, wouldn't.
Yeah.
Boom Bap, KRS-One, listening to the teacher,
There was a gig in Auckland. He came in a boat, and it was one of the most amazing.
He hates flying, right?
Dude, it would have been such a letdown if it hadn't been on. It was honestly top 3 maybe gigs for me ever, just on every measure. Anyway, continue. Yeah,
and then
he often gets overlooked as well. Don't get me started. Okay, keep going.
And I don't know. The next one's. It's probably a time.
You don't want to pick a New Zealander because it's too contentious, right? You can't pick one.
Yeah.
You go like ring ring.
Mickey D.
Come on,
the Mickey.
Oh, sorry, I didn't say come on. Sorry, because I know he'll listen to this. He's actually a fan of the show. I didn't mean like come on, that's not possible. But have you got a third one?
I don't know. For me, it's probably someone between
British. Let's go British. Let's go British. I like Rod. I'm a big Rodney P guy. That's really dated, but I love his swagger. Let me come back to
the
no third MC. That's disappointing. That's disappointing, V. After such good run.
It's always going to be like sometimes I like listen to Rakim like back in the day. If you're talking all time, or you're talking Nas, or you're talking even Jigga. Like I'm a massive Jigga fan. So
no, I get it. It's hard. It's like they're all my children and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Here's the. I mean, there's only 2 in the listener mailbag. To be honest, when I had Fraser from Bodega on, the listener mailbag lit up. So here's the final. We'll wrap on up. We'll say our goodbyes. Well, actually not, because we're going to head out. Bob from South America asks, tell him to tell bad stories about our 2 Brazil trips.
Wow.
That's verbatim.
I know exactly.
I would never turn something Bobby wrote into...
Well, what can I say? I've been lucky enough to go back there twice. Bobby, first time highlight, obviously meeting his family, cruising around with the Brazilian ambassador, going to his beloved Sao Paulo FC football game.
How does he connect with the Brazilian ambassador?
No, he is the Brazilian ambassador.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm slow.
No.
Okay.
He is.
Well, as I predicted, they are clearly not the bad stories about your 2 Brazil trips.
No, well, the second time, obviously, his beautiful wedding to his beautiful wife, Jazz, and that we had such an amazing time out most recently. So, Bobby, yep.
Okay, let's do something you can't see, you can't hear. Let's fist bump it out and then we can hit stop. All right, nice to chat to you, bro.
Thank you so much, bro.
Right.
And it's been a long time coming and really appreciate it.
Yeah.